All right. So, welcome everyone to the next installation of the Meet the Maker interview series, where I'm interviewing artists participating in the Bristol and Bloom Appalachian Regional Art Festival that's coming up in August, on Saturday, August 8th of this year. My name's Marcy, for those of you that don't know, and today I'm interviewing Greg Howser. So thank you, Greg, again, so much for joining me and for participating in the event, and also for doing this interview. If you would, just maybe take a second, and for people who don't know, just introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about where you're from.
Hey, so like she's saying, I'm Greg Howser. I live in Bluff City, Tennessee. Um, I'm a local artist. I have been here all my life. I've lived in Bluff City all my life. Actually, my family's been here for many generations. I have my BFA in painting from East Tennessee State and my master's in printmaking from East Tennessee State. And now I teach I am the art professor at Virginia Highlands Community College. So I'm here, there, a little bit everywhere. I'm in Virginia a lot.
That is really cool. First of all, I guess because I knew you taught in Virginia, I was thinking you were on Virginia side, but you're actually on my side of town, which is really cool.
Yeah.
So what is your primary area of focus? Like, what kind of classes do you mostly teach? And then what does your art focus on in your own practice?
At Virginia Intermart, I am based on at Virginia Highlands Community College. I'm basically the art department there. I teach Art History Survey 1, Survey 2, and then I teach the foundation art classes that we have there, which is 2D design, which is the basic building blocks of art and art making, where they learn, believe it or not, there's all kinds of theories and rules about art. If the students learn to apply those to their own work, it helps make it even better. So I teach that class. And then we teach 3D design, which is like intro to sculpture. So they learn how to create sculptures out of wire, out of cardboard, and different things like that. And then I teach drawing, basic drawing, where they learn how to do contour lines, how to do shading, and then they learn about perspective, and then how to use color and or stuff like that to the work. And then I teach intro to painting, which I do it the way I learned. So they use oil painting. Some of them don't like oil to begin with, but once the semester gets going and they learn all the things that they can do with oil, they really start liking oil painting a lot. So those are the classes we offer there at the college.
So what it sounds like you teach a variety of things then. So as far as like what your focus is with your own creative practice, what's your favorite? Or is that always changing?
It changes sometimes. A lot of times, right now, I do a lot of drawing and watercolors with my work. I also do oil painting a lot. I have a printing press, but I haven't set up my studio yet. So I'm hoping to start doing more printmaking as well.
Yeah, I think I had seen on your website where is it your master's is in printmaking?
Yes.
Yes. So I'm just going to go ahead and share my screen really quickly because you have some really cool stuff on your Instagram that I want people to see. So just making sure you can see that. Okay. Yeah.
Yes, I can see it really well.
So this one that you just posted fairly recently anyway. I love this. I just thought that was so cool. So what medium were you using when you created this little bee?
This bee piece is created with drawing and watercolor and color pencils.
Okay, really cool. So with your images, they're sort of surreal in their representation. So is that your primary, what would you say is your inspiration for your work?
My inspiration for my work comes from actually this community and people around this community and people that I know and people that I've observed watching. My work deals with my family, some of the crazy things that they do, sometimes crazy or interesting things I've seen happen in the public. And they're kind of like, I give the animals, what is that word? It's um, anthropomorphic, I think that's how you pronounce it. We give animals these human qualities.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Some of them are just like, this one is so cute. I love that little mouse's nose. um, but they're playful and they're fun too at the same time. And I think that's what has always drawn me to your images in the time that I've known you um, and started looking at your work. I love this one. This was in an exhibit for Dolly Parton, right?
Well, I didn't get into that show, but it's supposed to be in another show at the library and in Elizabeth, and because they're doing something with Dolly Parton. But I did
Yeah.
enter that in the Dolly show, but I didn't get in. But they're wanting to use it for something for Dolly Parton once everything starts opening back up.
Yes. Really cool. So do you have, I guess for me, when I'm looking at these, they tell a story. And so I
Yeah,
immediately
my
in
work
my
is
head
very
start telling stories around the images. So are there any stories in particular that, let's see if I can share my screen again. Any of these images that have any stories in particular that inspired them?
well, all of them actually come from some story or something. Um, some of the ideas for the animals come from some of my favorite childhood books. And I still read childhood books like Mrs. Brisby and the Rats and Nim. That's one thing that got me interested in doing stuff with mice
So
because
cool.
that was one of my favorite stories growing up. And I think about these stories a lot. And I listen to a lot of books on tape of grown up stuff and also children books as I drive around because I go to Boone a lot.
Yeah.
So I'm constantly listening. That gives me some ideas. Like the mouse with the wings. That one's about rebirth, rediscovery. The one where he's got the red wings and about change, and that's why the wings are red,
Yes.
and why it's kind of look like it's dripping blood. It's about change. It's about change. It's not always easy, but it's a wonderful thing once change happens.
I love that. I love that because, I mean, to me, though the wings look red and, like you said, looks like there's blood dripping off of them, he still looks liberated in a sense,
Hmm.
in that expression that he has, which is just so cute. And I love that you share the progress of the paintings as well, because it's just really neat to see your process going into these paintings too. So otherwise, so we've got your Instagram pulled up here, and you were talking about all the classes that you teach. And right now, you said primarily, so the medium that you're working with these is mostly drawing and watercolor and colored pencils. You said,
Hmm.
yeah,
Now the crow down there is a monoprint that
yes.
I did. I also teach workshops sometimes at the William King Museum, and that's a monoprint that I did for a workshop I taught showing students how to do different forms of printmaking. And the last week, the last few class periods we did was on monoprinting.
So that was something that I wanted to ask you about. So I've seen where you do the workshops, or I saw when you were doing the monotype printing at the William King Museum. So can you tell me a little bit about what that process is like?
Monoprinting is basically means one. So you get a piece of plexiglass and you put the ink on there and you start taking away ink and adding more ink till you get this image you think is interesting. And then you'll put the paper over it and you can run it through the press, and then you'll get the image. It'll transfer onto the paper. And then one of the really cool and fun things I like about printmaking that some people don't always like is you really don't know what you're going to get until you run it through the press and you lift lift the paper. To me, it's like Christmas. You know, it's this awesome surprise. And most of the time,
I
it's good. Sometimes you get things you don't always like, but
Yes, and I love the way you describe it. That's something in the limited experience that I have with printing. Um, First of all, I just love even watching videos of people like peeling the paper off. It's just a fun little reveal process, like you said, kind of like Christmas, getting to see the final product. But in my limited experience with printing, that's what's really fun is that it can be like you have the specifically with like block printing, I guess, or lino prints, like you have the carving done and that's the same, but each print still comes out different and still has its own little unique qualities to it that make each print after that special,
Mm-hmm.
which I think
Yeah.
is fun.
Uh-huh. And you never know what you're gonna get because it's always in reverse. Because I don't know,
Right.
sometimes they don't realize that when they do it, but your
Yeah.
carving and stuff, it always prints in reverse.
So with the
So
monotype printing, that could even be, I'll just share that image again of the crow. So with that, it can also be abstracted in a lot of ways with that particular style.
yeah, you can be really tight. And one thing I like doing with the monoprints that I don't do with my other work is I get more looser and more fluid with it because of the way I work with it, with this pouring the solvents onto the plate and stuff. So it
Yeah.
can be a very loose medium or it can be a very tight medium. I've seen some people be very tight with it, but I don't know. When I do monoprints, they kind of help me loosen up and kind of like refresh myself again. And I ain't worried about tight, crisp lines. And I think
Yeah.
there's a beauty in that.
Yeah. It just allows a little more room for freedom and that sort of creative response to engage even. Um, so just transitioning a little bit. So I know you've studied art for a long time, and you know, have gotten to where you're even teaching. So first, one question that I'm curious about is, for somebody who's interested in pursuing a degree in art, what benefited you the most about that process of pursuing your degree in art?
Um, the classes and stuff that I took, it helped me focus more on what I wanted to create, and it helped me figure out how to create it better. To me, that's one of the really important things about art school is it helps you focus, and it also helps you learn how to render or how to create the way you want to. Because
Yeah.
going into art school, my drawing abilities were very lacking, very bad. Like I would want to draw a cat or whatever, but I would have all the proportions wrong. So through drawing classes and through a lot of my professors, I learned how to observe things a lot better. I
Hmm.
find that's one thing that young artists, and I preach to my students a lot about is, you know what a cup is, so you visualize the cup and you draw the cup the way you think it is instead of actually looking at the cup and seeing it. And I'm from the old school of thought where I believe the students should learn how to render, how to do all this stuff before they start like breaking the rules. It's okay to abstract and to, you know, morph things into things, but it's best to know the rules and how to get the autonomy of this cup right before you start abstracting it.
Yeah, that
And
makes
that was the way I was taught.
yeah. And so, what about in your place as a teacher now? Does that still, I find for myself in the experience that I've had teaching, and I'm mostly referring to because I teach yoga part time, is I learned so much I learned more being in the position of the teacher than I did as a student. Not to say that I didn't still learn a ton as a student and that I'm not still a student, because I absolutely am and will forever be, but I learned so much when I step into that role as a teacher. So I'm curious what that's like for you in the classroom, in the art classroom specifically.
Yeah, I find that's one nice thing, and one thing I do miss about art school is you kind of feed off each other. You kind of bounce ideas off of each other. I know I sometimes help the students bounce ideas, and they get ideas from each other, and I sometimes get ideas for them for some of my work
Yeah.
because we it's like it's a nice environment. We all kind of like respond like, "Oh, she's doing it this way." Well, I've never thought about doing it this way, and it gives you ideas to try to do something differently and it improves. So yeah, I feel like I'm always learning. I learn a lot from my students. This is probably just about as much as they learn from me.
Yeah.
And then like with with the virus and stuff that's going on right now, I have learned I take for granted that I know how to take pictures of artwork, and I'm finding now that that's something I need to incorporate into my curriculum is to help them take better pictures.
Yes. Now that's something too, I guess with the virus and everything that's going on, especially when it comes to education, you know, especially for the arts education, it's put you all in a unique position because it's kind of hard to not be hands-on in the classroom for the art specifically. And so going to virtual learning creates its own unique challenges. And so it's presented you that opportunity to sort of recognize that photography is something to incorporate into your
Yeah,
curriculum.
because I find, I've took it for granted because I find, when you do shows or inner shows anymore, you have to have really good pictures of the work. And I'm noticing that some students haven't been thinking about lighting as well as they need to. And it's made me rethink about some of the lighting on my photographs as well for my work. And talking about, the differences with education, I've basically started a YouTube channel now because I'm doing I'm doing video demos of what I'm teaching them for class. So I'm learning how to do film and editing now, and learning how to do video things, which I've really enjoyed it. I've not did too many this semester, but we don't know what's going to hold for the fall. So I think this summer I'm going to start making a lot of different videos for my foundations class that I'm going to end up putting on YouTube that people will be
That
able to watch.
is so cool. And I get so excited because first of all, I'm always looking for, I myself personally love to find resources like that are online to learn because I'm a pretty independently motivated learner or student, I guess. So that's really exciting to, know that there's another teacher out there that I can study with online. But
Hmm.
it's also just what I love about creative people and like talking with creative people during this period, specifically during the pandemic. And this period where we're all being isolated and having to, you know, totally change how we've operated for so long, is that creative people come up with such creative solutions to all of these problems, and they end up coming, being really innovative. And so it sounds like you're doing that for yourself as well, just like getting into filming and editing film and all of those things and starting this YouTube channel, which is really cool and exciting. So is that started already, or?
I have one or two videos up already right now on tone paper because they're the last drawing project they were working with in drawing classes on tone paper. Starting out with, I was putting the videos on, we use Canvas, but I don't have enough space on Canvas to put the videos and all this other stuff. So I had to figure out some way to share the videos with the students in an easier way. And there were some other things I could have did through Canvas, but it seemed a little bit more complicated. And some of my students are older, so some of the technology baffles them a little bit. And most people know how to access YouTube. So that's why I was like, I'm gonna start putting them on YouTube.
Super smart. Well, what I was going to say is at the end, I will include your YouTube channel um, when I share the video so that everybody can be sure to look that up as well. Anybody who's looking to learn a few new things or try a few new exercises, which would be cool.
Yeah,
Um,
because I want to probably upload here in a couple of weeks. I'm gonna start doing some stuff for Foundation One, and I use um, I'm a jack of all trades. I'm master in a few things, but like I do quilting, and some of the exercises learning to do quilt blocks and create patterns of blocks is some of the exercises I actually use in Foundation One. There's one where everybody wants to draw on the center of the page and they don't know what to do with the outer. So talk to the video is going to talk about drawing in the center of the page. Then you rip the paper in half and tape it on the other way so you have a new center, and then you rip it diagonally, and it shows you how to create a design with patterns to fill up the whole page, which is
yes,
really cool. And that helps them with their earlier design projects.
that is a really cool activity and exercise, and that sounds really neat. So that's a video you're planning to upload in the future.
Probably school next week, school ends, and then I'm gonna start working on videos. How it works is in the fall time, I teach art. I teach history of art 1 and 2, and then I teach foundations 1, and I teach painting. And then in the fall, and then in the spring, I'll teach art history 1, art history 2, and then I'll teach drawing and 3D design. So that's how they rotate it. So
Yes.
this fall, I'll be doing probably demos of stuff about oil painting and then stuff about basic foundations and getting that
So,
ready.
another question I have then. So I know, so we just talked about you doing the monotype workshop at William King. Are those workshops that you also do semi-regularly, or do you do those in the summer when you're out of school?
I do them similar regularly, or we had planned a bunch of different things for the spring and stuff that didn't happen. Like I also love bookmaking. I think there's some books on down on my Instagram page of bookmaking I do. I think they might be some images of exposed spines. So I was going to teach some of that. I was going to do some quilting things,
Yes.
and I was going to do some more printmaking. The printmaking seems pretty popular. As you can
Yeah.
tell through my Instagram, I do a hodgepodge of everything. But I took 2 or 3 years of bookmaking in college, and I took 2 or 3 quilting classes, which
Hmm.
was really cool. I learned how to do some really neat surface design stuff, like how to print on quilts and how to dye fabric and stuff, which I thought was a lot of fun.
Yeah, so it definitely does sound like you are a jack of all trades, like you said. But I think that's, you know, I know for myself too, as a creative person, there are just so many different things that I'm interested in. And there are things that I'm comfortable in and that I feel more adept at, or I would never call myself a master just because I'm not there yet and I haven't been doing it for very long. But um, I would say that otherwise, it's important for me to have multiple things that not necessarily going all at once, but like different creative interests so that I don't necessarily get burnt out on one thing. Does that make sense?
It does, because I get like that. I need different things to keep me occupied, and I find knowing like how to do stuff with textiles has helped me paint better, helped me do design better, and book craftsmanship. I learned a lot about craft when I was taking those book making class. How important measurements is, importance of craft is. So it all builds. So I think it's really cool and really good to have a diversity of art skills.
Yes. And I think it's like you said, the way quilting can influence your painting, even, or inform your paintings. I think it's the same with a lot of things, a lot of different skills. They can inspire, you know, they can inspire and inform each other. Each practice can. So I think it's necessary almost as a creative person to have those different creative, I guess, interests that again can take breaks, can sort of serve as a reprieve almost, or like a restoration period after
Hmm.
working on something or a particular medium for a long period of time, um, if that makes sense.
It does, because you get after grad school. It took me a while. I did a lot of monoprints, loose monoprints after grad school before I started drawing, rendering things realistically again. I kind of have to like take a break.
Yes, I feel that. I, for myself, I do a lot of abstract paintings, and then I go back and forth between abstract paintings and illustration, and then occasionally I'll do some block printing. But it is very much like after a long spell of working on abstract paintings, I have to go back to illustrations and things that have more shape and more form, just to sort of give myself a break from that to sort of refresh myself, I guess.
Hmm.
Um, so otherwise, so you've grown up in this area, you've lived here pretty much your whole life, and you kind of touched on this as far as, you know, the stories that from members in your family or people that are close to you, informing and inspiring, and sort of being themes in your work. But otherwise, something that I'm asking everybody is about being an Appalachian artist, and if that's something that you identify as, and if that's something that sort of resonates with you in your work. And I'm curious what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah, I feel like I am from the Appalachians, so I feel like I am influenced by the mountains, influenced by Appalachian culture. I want to do a piece about a squirrel pretty soon, dealing with my elderly mother. She's a lot. She's our generation. She's does a lot like my grandfather, and I catch myself doing it too. She's a bad hoarder, so I want to do this little squirrel who has problems with hoarding, which in some ways that's part of Appalachian culture. I know a lot of Appalachian people, we hoard things like toilet paper right now. Everybody's hoarding up. My mother, my mother is a bad food hoarder. She probably has enough canned food to last a long while.
Well, that sounds like I'm picturing it in my head, and I'm sure the image is different from what you would, how it would turn out, but it sounds really adorable. But I definitely can relate to that, as far as both the hoarding elements and having family members who hoard, and then also, you know, those stories and just being from Appalachia and being inspired by the outdoors and
Mhm.
everything else informing your work.
And I do pieces with that Dolly Parton piece. She's very much Appalachian culture.
Yeah.
I do pieces that have stuff with the mountains in it, and most of the animals, not all of them, but most of the animals, I try to do regionally.
Yeah.
Some things aren't. Um, some I do lot of aquatic things. For some reason, I'm really drawn to whales. So those whales or flamingos are a little bit of things that aren't Appalachian that I do, but most everything else I try to use with reference to
Oh,
Appalachian, like crows. Crows are very big in Appalachian folklore and in folklore.
yes. Well, I was looking just right here where I had gotten to, in your Instagram feed, there's the bear, there's the rooster, there's a cow. So those things are definitely more traditionally Appalachian, like you were saying. And then, there's the flamingo, well, kind of a flamingo, that
That
you
one.
were talking. And then, yes, there's the whale piece yes, this is one, that I think of, I just love this one. It's so dreamy.
Thanks. It's one I call them my those with like the anamorphic figure wings. Those are like I think about space. Those are like my space whales about, and a lot of them are about dreaming, about dreamscapes and stuff. Usually by giving them the wings or kind of like outer space, kind of like a dream fluid.
Yes.
Um, the background on that piece, I'm thinking about writing a paper. Well, I am writing a little paper about citrusol. I learned about citrusol papers 5, 6, 7 years ago. And those are, I'm going to try to teach a workshop at William King about citrus salt papers. So citrus salt papers are made out of natural geographics. So you pour citrus salt on them, and you create those scrap papers out of the natural geographics. Well, a lot of people have been doing that, and there's different things you can do with it. And the thing that bothered me or I was upset with is they were only the size of the Natural Geographic, so they're about 6 by 4 by 6s, a little bit bigger. I think they're like 6 by 8 or something like that. So I started playing with them in Photoshop, zooming them, making them bigger, and then I would print them out and make these bigger pieces from them. So I've been experimenting a lot with that. So like that one was a little teeny piece of a citrusol paper that I've played with in Photoshop, and I've changed a little bit, and then I had blown it up and printed it out, and then I painted the well on it and did some other weird stuff with the paint to help integrate it into one piece.
Yes. That is so cool and so interesting and such a great idea.
And
And I
can't
love the
remember the name
result
of
of
the
it.
lady. Well, thanks. I can't remember the name. She's a Boone artist who discovered how to do this stuff with the citrusol. I can't think of her name, but I've changed it a little bit where I know she's just working on the Natural Geographics as they are. I've started experimenting with blowing them up and seeing like the interesting things through the pixelation and everything with them in my work.
Yeah. Well, just this close up of the background and the textures that are there, and then also when you have the transparency of the wings and that sort of glaze of the wings, it's just
Mm-hmm.
so pretty.
Thanks.
They have this really luminescent quality, and I love that. And it does, the way the paper turned out and the way um, I guess when you blew it up in Photoshop and edited it and everything, it does have that really sort of galactic outer space element. And it does just make it look so dreamy.
The piece right beside of that, the one with the shark, is also did on one of those papers that I have blown up and altered.
Yes.
So that one, that the whole background of that piece is also one of those citrusol papers that I have found something interested in, and then I have blown it up and changed it and made this beautiful piece of blue paper that I
Yeah.
have printed out and started doing my drawings on top of.
So the citrusol, is that a solution?
Yeah, it's a cleaning solution. It's a vegan. It's like really strong orangey, has an orange smell to it,
Yes, I know what
and
you're talking about.
it will dissolve the Natural Geographic. Sometimes I don't know if it's in that one. Sometimes you can still see some of the text and stuff on some of the pieces that I've did. But
That,
I like that it gives it a really neat layering effect.
yes, and that's exact. It seems like it's got just layers and layers when it's really just this solution you've put on paper.
And it makes a
That's
nice collage paper.
that is so cool. I love that. Well, otherwise, so as you shared, you've got the Appalachian influence from the stories from your region. What about um, and you teach full time? And I guess I'm wondering for your students, you know, you're talking about also teaching them how to photograph their images in a better way to showcase them better. And I guess what I'm getting around to is what opportunities do you see for artists now in this region and being in the digital age?
Well, I know that the William King's fixed to start offering some classes doing stuff with Photoshop. I don't know exactly when, but they're opening at the art lab that they're doing. There is the William King up there that helps a lot of the young and a lot of the thriving artists. And they're also doing stuff. I'm also a member of the Art Depot, and they do a lot of different things for artists. I think they're even starting to allow, of course, I know we're not having Highlands Festival this year, but last year they opened up even a category for digital art at
Mm,
the Highlands show, what is it? The Highlands Art Festival. I think it's what the show is called. I can't
yes.
remember.
Yeah.
But they're even starting to add like a prize and even a little section for digital art because it's the new thing. I like doing digital stuff a little bit, but there's nothing to me like the feel of the paper, the feel of the actual pencils, and the smells. All the smells. I love the smell of oil paint, which is probably bad for you, but I like the idea nowadays that you can combine digital stuff with traditional art mediums and come up with these whole new things.
Yeah. Well, and that's what I guess in some of the conversations that I've been having with other artists in the last several days is just how this time, being in the digital age, it really opens up so many possibilities for artists, especially artists that want to try and do art full time, because there's not necessarily one route anymore to get to that place. And the having digital access or access to the internet, you have access to so many, you can have so many more eyes on your work than,
Hmm.
in the past. And so, yeah, I think it's just an exciting time for artists. And I think it's an exciting time, even now during the pandemic, because now we actually have time for our art.
Yeah, actually, I've been making a lot more lately
Yeah.
because it kind of helps me de-stress. Art, I've always been kind of I've always enjoyed drawing, even when I was little. I used to draw cats a lot when I was little, and as I got older, it helps me kind of rest, helps me kind of get away from everything. I forget about all the troubles. It's very therapeutic for me. Is one reason that I create what I do anyway. It's because I need a way to escape. Talking about the digital thing, one thing that I've been wondering about and studying about with the doing stuff digitally is like when you print things, like when I'm printing things, those inks are not archival. They're not light fast. So I've been looking into and trying these different sprays that are UV protected, supposed to help keep your work from degrading. Because it makes me sad to think, I've created something, and if someone hangs it too close to the sun, 3 or 4 years, it's gonna start vanishing, and then they're gonna get annoyed at me, being like, "Hey, you sold me something that ain't that's not archival. It's not lasting. It's faded." So that's one thing I would tell people to look in about more, because I've been looking in more about it. Different sprays and different coatings you can put on your images to help keep the sun from fading them, from using unarchival inks.
Yeah, that's something I've been reading about also, is there, it's almost like you wouldn't maybe think to, similar to like when you varnish a painting, you wouldn't necessarily think to varnish a print in a way, but it sounds like it's a similar concept. You're just putting this protective layer over it to protect it from that decay, like you said.
In the sun. And I do, which you can't tell on those pieces, I mount a lot of my artwork because I like the idea of canvases and not having things behind glass. All of my watercolors, for the most part, are mounted either on boards or canvases, and then I put protective layers of fixative, and then I put a layer of varnish over them. So they're almost like an oil paint, but they're really a watercolor drawing.
Yes.
And that's one way I protect my drawings and stuff, because I don't know, it just, to me, sometimes putting things behind glass makes it a little less approachable. People are like, they can't really see it, but I find that if I have mounted it onto a board and I've took precautions to keep it from being damaged, it helps people be more approachable. They get closer to it and they look at the detail a little bit better.
Yeah, and it can be hard to see behind glass, especially if it's, not like a non-reflective glass. So if there's a reflection in the glass, it can be hard. It can sort of obscure things. So that's really interesting too, and a great idea also. Um, so otherwise, I guess I'm just curious for yourself, if so, are you actively selling your work? Do you sell it through Instagram, or is that not something you?
I actively sell my work. Usually I sell it through Instagram. Also, like last summer, I've had a show at the Art Depot where I sold a lot of pieces. The festival I'm doing through Youth in Bloom is another way I've been selling work. And sometimes people ask me on Instagram, "Hey, is that for sale?" or on Facebook, and I sell stuff that way too. I'm
Okay.
thinking about doing a Etsy account, but I have so many things going on. But that's another thing I've been thinking about doing, another way to sell my work. But yes,
Yeah.
I sell almost everything. There's a few pieces that now and then I keep, but most things I have either sold, or give away. But most of the time, I sell most everything. Um, like that flamingo with the crow, I've kept that one. I really like that one, and I might get tired of it later. There's 2 or 3 people who are interested in that one, But for me, for some reason, I don't know, that one really speaks to me. And I've been more experimenting lately with the watercolor dripping and stuff.
Yes.
And I don't know, I like that one and I've kept that one. But most of the time I sell things, and usually if I do keep a piece after a couple of years, I'll usually, want something new and I'll end up selling it. Art's kind of like to me, your creations are kind of like your children. So sometimes it takes a little hard sometimes to get rid of it, and you always want them to go to a good home.
Yes, I actually have a painting that I just sold recently that was my absolute favorite, and I was so sad when it sold. And I was happy, but I was really sad. But I knew the person that it was going to, so it was like, okay, at least I know that it's going somewhere safe where it'll be appreciated and it
Hmm.
won't be stuffed in a closet somewhere and forgotten about. So yeah, I feel the same with your creations. Yeah, I definitely worry about them, especially and I wonder about them when they're gone. Like, I
I
wonder,
do too.
yeah, how it's doing. But cool. So if I wanted to buy a piece from you, I could just send you a message on Instagram and say, hey, this is the one that I want. I want this.
Hmm.
And we could work out whatever deal. What about, do you do commissions or anything like that?
Yeah, I do commissions every once in a while. I don't do them as often, but I do commissions. I usually charge a standard size for like an 8 by 10 or 11 by 14. I usually charge a standard size for everything that
Sure.
I create.
So somebody wanting a commission could do the same, just reach you through Instagram
Hmm.
or Facebook.
Yeah, or I think my email might be on Instagram. That's another good way to reach me.
Okay, cool. Well, otherwise, my last question, I do want to know the story behind the crow and the flamingo.
It A lot of my work lately has been about growth and changing and becoming something else. So basically, the crow is trying to get ready for summer. He's getting ready to party and he's dressing up for summer, and growing and his experiences with that.
I love that. Well, I hope this little crow has the best party this summer. I just think that's so cute, and I love these stories behind them.
And then some of them, like a lot of times, not this crow, but a lot of times, the crow represents this very special friend of mine. And sometimes the mouse will represent me a lot of times, but not always. But like I said earlier, these pieces usually represent people for the most part or something going on.
That is so cool. So watch out for me spamming your Instagram messages, just like, can you tell me the story about this piece? Tell me the story about this piece. Because I
It's
love
fun.
that.
I enjoy telling those. It makes it more fun. And
Yeah.
sometimes it's fun to hear the stories that people put behind the pieces too. Because
Yes.
that's the beauty about art. I'm never upset if someone looks at that and gets something else. I'm like, that's cool. I'm glad that you think of it and it helps you connect in that way.
Yeah. For me, art is so much about connection and creating connection. Like, through the creation of art, I am able to better connect with myself, and better connect with my likes, dislikes, and even just navigating my own growth. And so, in sharing my work, I feel that I'm able to create connections with other people as well. Whether it's somebody that reacts very strongly and potentially negatively to a piece, or absolutely falls in love with a piece. And I like that idea of inspiring that connection in somebody else as well through my work. That's something that I hope for in the things that I create, is that people viewing it are able to connect with an emotion or something within themselves, and maybe learn something about themselves or observe something new about themselves. But yeah, with having that narrative that you creating through your work, you're inviting people, the viewer, to connect with the story as well. And like you said, it could be a story similar to the one that inspired it, or it could be like a story that's totally their own and different. But I think that's what's great about artwork, is the way that it can create those connections. Yeah, so that's really neat. But anyways, so I really appreciate you again, Greg, for hopping on here and for sharing this time with me today. And not only that, but for participating in the Bristol and Bloom event. And I love your work. I love the cute animals that you create. I don't know if cute is what you're going for, but I love them. I think they're so cute.
Yeah, my work is, I do a lot of things. There's so much negativity. A lot of things I'm always trying to show positive or the beauty in things to try to help people smile and feel good about things.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I think you're really successful in that. Um, but yeah, so I really appreciate you again, and I can't wait to see more of the work that you're doing, and I can't wait to share more of it. So after, I will be sharing this video and all the links for people to be able to access you from there. But otherwise, yeah, I look forward to getting to see you in person in August and chat
yeah,
with you.
me too.
Cool.
I'm excited about the event.
Yay, good, really good. Well, cool. Thank you again so much, Greg, and I will chat with you again soon.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.